Good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the globe, in the chat room, phone apps, God only knows wherever you are. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and this night we've got Robert Morningstar joining us. He's been here before, and I think you're going to find it quite interesting. Robert will be talking to us about the secret space program, and we're going to talk a lot about the moon tonight, including some remote viewing. And by the way, this broadcast is coming at you live from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, here on the east coast of the United States. You know, that coast that's supposed to get slammed in so many different ways. Exciting times to be living on the East Coast, I guess. But yeah, we've got a good one tonight. And if that music before the show made you a little sad, then, well, this show might cheer you up, because what you're going to find out through tonight's guest and the information he brings is that there are towers on the moon, that there are space bases on the moon. I don't want to say alien bases. All I'm going to say is space bases at this point. But if you go over to, if you go to my website, latenightinthemidlands.com, which, if I may add, has been getting tremendous amount of traffic. I want to thank you, everybody, for, what it seems to me is that a lot of people who had issues with the old site have really taken to the new one, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm glad to see it. That means we're getting the word out to a whole lot more people. So it's back to where it was, where it should be, anyways. But if you go up to the top, there's some tabs, and you'll see one that says pictures. Well, if you click on tonight's show pictures, it will take you over to a page that has, guess what, tonight's show pictures. And in those pics are they're pics of the moon, and they're pics that show what look to be like towers and even UFOs amongst the moon. So they're there. We're going to go through these pictures tonight with my guest, Robert Morningstar, and we are going to discuss these things. So we'll see where we are at the end of all this. I'll tell you, there's a video that he shared with me too, and you get a real good close-up on one of the pictures, and there's absolutely no mistaking it that there's a tower sticking out of one of those craters on the moon, on the backside of the moon. And this came from the Chinese space agency. They took the picture, and I think Russia did as well. Of course, the United States, they put patches over stuff. They don't want you to see it. But you'll be able to see it now, and our guest tonight will go over some of that with you. We do have some news to get to, so why don't we do that? Oh, by the way, for all you deniers out there who say that I'm crazy for saying that World War III had already started, India is buying 200 Russian Kamov-Ka. They're Kamov-Ka 22-6T helicopters. Japan wants 48 Harpoon Block number 2 missiles. So it's like everyone's stocking up. I mean, Japan, what do they want missiles for? Oh, that's right. They're having some problems with China right now over some disputed areas, right? And the United States, of course, is getting their nose involved there as well. And you got Norway. And it says here that they're seeking up to 200 AIM-9X Block 2, some big names here, Sidewinder missiles. Sidewinder missiles. So they're going to throw some curveballs. So that's what Norway wants. So, everybody's stockpiling. Anyways, moving along here, there's a story I came across over on Dr. Leonard Coldwell's website, and so I shared it over here on latenightinthemidlands.com as well, in News and Discoveries, and it says, help stop laws that make feeding homeless illegal. And if you go over to his site, which you can get through from my site, there's a petition there that you could sign. It says here that in 2012, Houston, Texas, passed a law that would fine anybody giving food to more than 5 people in public, that they would fine them. So just recently, a 90-year-old man was arrested for trying to feed some homeless people in his city. I think a lot of you remember that. We've seen that. The homeless are increasingly being treated like maggots, like they're a bother, and that they need to be, let's fill the FEMA camps, because that's what the plan was. I don't know if they're still doing it because it was exposed, but some tell me that they are. But that was the plan. Even here in Columbia, South Carolina, they were going to lock them up in these facilities, and the only way they'd be able to leave is through one of the facility vans. So the van would take them to any appointments they might have, and then they're going right back in the lockup. For what? For being down on your luck? So now it's illegal to be poor in a country that makes sure you are? I mean, geez. Anyways, with city ordinances that make helping them punishable with time in jail, churches, they say, are even spraying homeless people with freezing cold water, because that's what Jesus would have done, when they linger in the alcoves, it says here. So, and there's some pictures there and different things, so I suggest you go check it out. I mean, then of course there was the cases in Florida, and this is happening everywhere, where, people, they say, what was the quote here by this Mayor Nutter? His name is Philadelphia Mayor Nutter. What a good name for him. He says he's imposing the ban on all outdoor feedings of large numbers of people on city parkland, including Love Park and Ben Franklin Parkway, where it is not uncommon for outreach groups to offer free food. He says that feeding the homeless lacks both sanitary conditions and dignity. So you would have more dignity walking by a hungry person and doing nothing for them. Maybe even you might even get a higher dignity by spitting on them, right? Than you would, according to this guy, according to the Nutter. Then you would get if you were to, even go in and buy a burger for the guy and give it to him. That's illegal. You can't feed. It's like stray cats, don't feed them because they'll never leave, right? Is that the whole idea? I mean, this is insane. Everybody, you see someone out there needs help them. And folks, if you see somebody giving somebody help and they get hassled, help them. That's how we win this. We all stick together. And of course, there's that story from Orlando, Florida. I mean, there's just so much. It's all linked up under News and Discoveries. I mean, there's a whole lot here. I certainly can't go through the entire thing with you, but you get the drift. It's become legal. Feeding the homeless has been banned in major cities all over the U.S. at a time when poverty and government dependence are soaring to unprecedented levels. Is it really a good idea to ban people from helping those that are hurting when our country has been in so much of an economic hardship? I mean, how many people are out of work? Thank you, Obama. How many people? I mean, so this is what I told you. This is the plan. This is how they're going to do it. I know we picture like military coups coming in and swiping us up. Well, they got layers. They're doing this in layers. There's a plan, okay? They're going to do this in layers. This is how I see it anyways, okay? So one of those layers is first, let's hurt the economy really bad. Let's hurt the job market. Let's get people homeless. Let's make it so they can't pay their mortgages. Let's screw them on their mortgages as well. They'll lose their homes, lose their jobs. Eventually, they'll be out in the street. And at that point, all we have to say is, well, it's against the law to be homeless, so we took them somewhere safe. So then they get a whole bunch of people out of the way that way. So then they go for the next layer, whatever that will be. Those of you who, I don't know, you smoked marijuana and you have a gun license, or they're going to come for you, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. So then when they get down to it, all they'll have to deal with is the hostiles, and the hostiles won't be able to wake up the non-hostiles. So they'll do it in layers. They'll try to even out the playing ground. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. The question is, do you know what they're doing? Oh, a jury sentences this guy. I'm not even going to try his name here. The guy that got accused of the marathon attack. They say I got that story put up on the website as well. They say the jury ruled today they're going to sentence him to death. Now, here's the only thing I want to know is, will any media be able to interview this kid before they fry him? Of course not. Of course not. How come any of these people, it should be mandatory that they should have to address the media, right? I mean, because I'd like to hear, his side. I like to, then they show a picture. They put a picture of him throwing his middle finger up in the prison cell. And, so they get the best picture they can. And he's probably ticked off because the CIA made a deal with him. And then they went and, they used him. They used him for their plot. And so now he can't tell anybody because he's locked up in this glass steel bubble. And that's it. And then they're going to fry him and it'll all be swept under the rug. So nobody will know nothing, right? Great plan, isn't it? Shouldn't we demand that some media outlet somewhere, no, not CNN, not Fight, we know about them in their green screen. I'm talking about a real media. We'll do it. Can we talk to him? I'd like to talk to him just for a few minutes. And if he wants to throw the finger and spit at me, then I'll say, okay, fine, fry him. But, I don't know. I think he'd have something to tell us. And then, of course, they say he was unresponsive in the courtroom. Well, of course. Of course he is. You think they're not injecting him before they're bringing him out? They're going to make sure he's unresponsive. He ain't allowed to be responsive. That's a living witness right there. Mafia don't let witnesses walk. Come on. You know that. I know that. You know that. We all know that. Unfortunately, the thrill is gone, folks. B.B. King, dead at 89. He, was a musical sensation. And at 89, he's dead. And, some people are acting surprised. I'd say, hey, 89, he's had a nice, long, fulfilled life. Definitely very successful. And so he is now on the other side. And so, Donnie, go get his autograph, buddy. Citizens interrogated traveling in their own country. No, this isn't another country, folks. This is our country, the United States of America. I'm speaking to you. Yep, citizens right here in the United States are getting interrogated traveling on our own roads. North Country residents have mixed views, it says here, and strong opinions about the value of traffic checkpoints routinely set up by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agencies. Yeah, they don't protect anything. And they're assigned to monitor the American side of the U.S.-Canadian border. Based on random interviews, several said they believe border checkpoints are necessary to keep out explicit drugs. But these are the people that don't know that it's the CIA that's bringing the drugs in. Illegal immigrants, they don't know the border's wide open. Illegal immigrants are welcome to just come in the country. They get everything handed to them. So these are people who this is what I mean. When I post this stuff, don't think that I always go along with this crap. I mean, sometimes I put this stuff up because that's why I've been leaving comments down here with some of these stories, because, I'm explaining to people that, I'm just showing you the propaganda that they're giving you. So once in a while I post something like this. And anyways, they say that it's needed. However, many, those who are awake, I'm sure, also said they're concerned that too many law enforcement officials, including Border Patrol agents, unlawfully stretch their authority by using aggressive tactics when interrogating law-abiding citizens. So you get stopped, like that'd be like me pulling out of here, I don't know, getting on I-20 or I-26 and going off an off-ramp here, and all of a sudden there's a checkpoint. They stop me and they start interrogating me about what I'm doing in the country, where I'm going. Hey, none of your damn business what I'm doing. None of your business at all. So, and these Border Patrol they talk about, they got the Border Patrol that they use that are controlled. They're told that they're not allowed to say anything. They're not allowed to arrest anybody. And then they've got these other ones, which I think are CIA wearing the agents, the patrol agents' uniform, probably. And they're the ones doing the interrogations, I'm sure. They said last week, Jessica Cook, she's 21 years old in Ogdenburg. She was pulled over at a border checkpoint, and apparently they wanted to search her car's trunk. For what, right? And during and of course they had no probable cause except for they're looking for illegal aliens. Nobody told them that they should go to the border, because that's where they are. They're all coming over the border. And Miss Cook allegedly was subdued by a stun gun. So because she refused, which she has every right to do, she was stun gunned in America. Just going on about your business. You're going, maybe going to buy a loaf of bread, and Johnny CIA Law is going to go and electrocute you because you won't do what he said. Simon Said just got rougher, folks. It's being played with boxing gloves and Chinese stars now. The incident was captured on cell phone video, and get this, several sheeple, said they believed both parties deserved some blame. They said that Miss Cook deserved her part for provoking agents by being uncooperative. Look, we're in the United States of America. I'm going to drive down to the convenience store without getting harassed. I promise you that. Unless, of course, I don't use a signal, which nobody here in South Carolina uses signals, which is not even the cops. Or you don't have your seatbelt down, which are, the seatbelt stuff, that was all designed to give them more probable cause to pull you over, by the way. They could care less if you fly through a windshield. So, if I'm doing something wrong, fine. But to just stop me, get in the middle of the road and stop the car because, you want some cockeyed reason for searching my vehicle and my person, oh no, that's unacceptable. But they'll tase you if you don't let them. Anyways, U.S. and China set for high-stakes rivalry in skies above South China Sea. The U.S. is pretty much standing with Japan and on the South China Sea, where these islands are that they've been disputing over. These little islands, I guess. China and Japan have been disputing one another. Well, the United States is, they're going over there now too. They're there. And, getting their nose involved, too. I'm telling you, look, you got China, Russia, Japan, all the major players are in it. Remember those Georgia Guidestones. The one language that's missing from them is Japanese. Remember that. Just remember what I said. Somebody thought I was wrong on that once, but I'm not. There's no Japanese on there. That's the one major language missing. So, it's coming, folks. Anyways, that's linked up as well. Let's see. New photos reveal... this one. New photos reveal possible Jade Helm Walmart smoking gun. Folks, it's a smoking gun. Whoo, put that sucker down because it's hot. It's smoking. All right, I seen this today. Someone sent it to me. I wish you hadn't, because now I've got to go ahead and do what I got to do here. But Intel Hub is where this one came from. And I've always... I've never thought that poorly of them. I mean, I really didn't have no thought on Intel Hub. But stuff like this bothers me, okay? Because it says here, pictures sent to Intel Hub by a reader reveal that the military Humvees are indeed being shipped to the recently closed Walmart store by 18-wheeler for possible future use. The closed stores are possibly being used in the upcoming Jade Helm 15 exercise, as speculated earlier on by conspiracy theorists. Yeah, but they're passing it here. I mean, they're saying in the title it says smoking gun. Smoking gun. This is no smoking gun. I'll tell you what, I looked at this, and you know what you got? You got a Walmart that's well open. It's not closed. If you look in the background, you can see all the vehicles. All right, so it's not closed, and if you've ever noticed, anybody could, if you want to go in denial, go ahead, but anybody could go to any Walmart, and how often, I go by one all the time when I drive down the road, and there's always trucks parked in the parking lot, because that's where they go rest, because Walmart allows them to. Now, this particular truck happened to have a few military Jeeps on it. And I would ask you, if that's the case and they're moving in military equipment, how come there's just one flatbed with 3 Jeeps? Where's the rest of them? We're talking about the United States military here. We're not talking about dairy ice cream. Okay, it's not one truck. So, I mean, I wish people would stop spreading the fear-mongering propaganda. That's what irritates me, because you make it so hard to get to the truth when you promote this garbage just to get hits on your website or just to get be popular. Or you think you're going to be the next Alex Jones or something. Well, good luck to you on all that. But this bothers me. It does. All right. So it's a fully functional Walmart, and it's just a truck that stopped the rest. No, I didn't go interview the guy, but my eyes aren't lying to me. I could see it. Okay. It's not vacant at all. And, and if that's all you need for proof, man, we could really fool the hell out of everybody then. I mean, how about some real proof? Did the guy took the picture? Did he go up and talk to the truck driver and record it? No, just take a picture. Hey, let's send that in. We'll get a nice big conspiracy going on the internet. Oh, you're there. Why not go talk to the truck driver? Oh, you had your tail between your legs? Are you scared? I would have. I would have went up and knocked on the window and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Truck Driver, may I have a word with you on camera?" And if he said no, I would have done it anyways. But, I guess people just want to throw the fear. They don't want to go ahead and do the work. Anyways, I thought I'd throw that out there as well. Folks, coming up next, we're going to be talking about the secret space program with Robert Morningstar. And I expect we should get some call-ins tonight, because we're going to be talking about the moon. And I want to hear from you all once we get things rolling here. So, folks, this is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera. We try to keep it real here, and we'll be right back. Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information, and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you.
Hello, this is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. You've heard Dr. Leonard Horowitz and experts urge you to avoid deadly vaccinations and illegal operators selling stolen OxySilver and OxySilver copycats. You've heard experts tell you about suppression in alternative medicine and confusing propaganda in healthcare and the truth movement. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver, Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Including OxySilver, the world's most powerful silver hydrosol. Electro-energized to put risky injections, toxic antibiotics, and deadly drug pushers out of business. OxySilver is covalently bonded to water. Unlike any other silver product using the frequency of chlorophyll 528, what Dr. Horowitz explains is pure tone love, the universal healer. NASA originally developed covalently body silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and and more. OxySilver works 3 ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything, far better than all leading silver products, and without any risk. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com.
And as we have been programmed mentally, intellectually, one must be aware of this being programmed like a computer.
Programming that we are constantly assaulted by throughout our life positions us, it programs us to a particular worldview.
The project is literally the secularization of the world. New secular or worldly order.
A new study says the news media have been pushing a gospel of godlessness on the American public.
Because this media is here and designed to make sure that they ask no critical questions. To make sure that the only thing that they are concerned about is having a good time. And so that is why today, one of the struggles that you have as young people, that when you want to do different events and you want to talk about real issues, you have the struggle of many of your peers who've been so conditioned in this matrix that they would rather party than listen to the truth. They would rather party and shop and go to the mall than to stand up for issues of justice. They're stuck in the matrix. But you have the responsibility of helping to wake them up.
Now, how do we know that there's a God? After having been thoroughly brainwashed, and how do we know that there's a creator?
It's the middle of the night, and there's nothing much to do. Bring your insomniac self over to Late Night in the Midlands and learn something. We've got every topic you can think of, and very little being off limits. Alien abductions, government corruptions, the stuff that's got your sleep disrupted. Come join the conversation tales and tune into Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera.
We're going to really be discussing the moon. I'm going to get him on here in just a moment. And I'll say this, folks, because I see some of the chatter going on there in the chat room. And, you know, for these guys who claim that they once were part of the Illuminati, and then they get out and they're telling you all the secrets. Come on, let's use common sense. Do you really think that they're going to let you do something like that? I mean, you know, could you ever join the mafia, know who the father of the mafia was, and all the secrets, and then just say, hey guys, you know, I'm done, see ya? It don't work that way. And by the way, I'm going to go to conferences and tell everybody what you guys are doing. It don't work that way. You know, I don't know. I'm glad that I'm not easily fooled like that. I'm glad that I don't let that, you know, I look at it, I listen, don't get me wrong. And I always say, well, there's that possibility. But if they are letting somebody go out and say these things, then it's because they want them to say what they're saying, because it's not going to help us any. So I don't know. Look, there's tunnels all over the United States. Absolutely there is. So for people, all of a sudden now, a few Walmarts closed, and all of a sudden, where was this information before? Were they coming out a year ago and telling you there's tunnels going from Walmart? No, they wait until some of the stores close. Then they start telling you this. I mean, it's just, come on. Oh, their bosses came and told them. Their secret sources told them, and they can't share that with you. It's just, I don't know. I want proof. Anybody think they got answers? Prove it to me. If you don't have proof, then I'm sorry, I can't go along with it. And then if you're in this business long enough, you can see who's with who. And you can see, we already know what Coast is and shows like that. We already know where they stand and things. And you see what groups stick together like that on all this stuff. And you get an idea of, who's here to get the truth out and who's just here to have a great story. And we're not looking for great stories. We're looking for truth here. And I get easily irritated with this stuff. I really do. I mean, I don't know. I need to see proof. Look, if you know that there's a tunnel, say, under my house going to my living room, well, can you show me? Take me to it. Can I go? Can I go look? Can I see? I could go down to the Walmart down here now. Just tell me how I get to that tunnel, and I will go find it. I'll go do it. I'll stop the show right now, and I'll drive my ass down there, and I'll do it right now. And I'll bring a camera with me. But you got to tell me how I get to this tunnel that goes to Walmart. All right, so with that, and I probably sound like I'm griping, and I'm not. I'm just, man, I've been hearing so much about these Walmarts. We know Walmart's horrible. We know they're New World Order shopping center. We know this. We know what they're about. But, it's like, I wonder what would happen if, I don't know, 5 Carvels closed. Would we hear the same things? I'm just curious. All right. Anyways, let me tell you a little bit about my guest, because I know he's waiting for us here. Robert Morningstar is a civilian intelligence analyst. And even him, I ask for proof, folks. I do. Everybody I do. And I know not everything could be proven. Okay? And anyways, he's a psychotherapist in New York City. He received a degree in psychology from Fordham University, an expert in Chinese language, history, martial arts, and is an FAA licensed pilot. And, he's going to join us tonight, and we're going to talk about the moon. We're going to talk about the secret space program. He's been an instrument ground instructor with 23 years of flying experience. So he's a pretty good idea of, what he's looking at. Robert has studied the paranormal and UFO phenomena for about 40 years and has published many research articles on the internet exposing government cover-up and deception in the JFK assassination, and his work is cited in major books on the assassination, notably in Paris. But anyways, I'll let him tell you more. I know that he's an associate editor of UFO Digest, and he's going to join us here in just a moment. I've just got to find him here. I think we got a boy. We got folks, we're gonna give this a shot here. For some reason I've got 2 Robert Morningstars here, and I'm hoping that I don't call the wrong one. So I don't know which one we got here, and boy, that's troublesome, but here we go. I'm going to guess I got the right one. I don't know how 2 got in there. Well, that might not be it. Let's try it. I don't know. Well, I might have to get the number, I guess, because I don't know. I don't want to just get somebody random here on the air. So, folks, I hate to do this to you, but hang on with me for a moment. I have to go off air to do this, and I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Hang in there with us.
We know you want the truth. That's why we created Late Night in the Midlands. From the Philadelphia Experiment to the Philadelphia Caller.
Well, first off, I want to say I'm enjoying your show. I wish there was something like this up in Philadelphia.
And from West Columbia to you.
Taking no smoking nothing. I'm just out of work, blue collar man. But like I told her once again, sometimes coast to coast, the subject matter gets boring. I've been listening to Late Night in the Midlands since I've been on. I think it's pretty cool. And again, like I said, this is what we need around here.
And every now and then you hear it first, right here on Late Night in the Midlands.
With the old painless from Preston.
Well, the first thing is, though, to be fair, don't you think Mr. Paul and I ought to flip the coin?
Absolutely.
Why do I have to be VP?
Well, I was thinking,
I'm fair. Let's destiny take it. Flip the coin in the air. If it's heads, I win. Tails, he wins.
Hey, that sounds good to me.
No, it wouldn't matter either one of us. It would be, and I'll tell you this: if Ron were to run again, and if he came to me and asked me to run with him, I will state this: I would give it very sincere and deep consideration.
You just never know who's going to call in on Late Night in the Midlands.
Yeah, you just never know who's going to call in, folks. And my guest has called in here for us tonight, so that's good. That's good, because I was looking for the phone number. I don't know what happened, but somehow I wound up with, apparently there are several that by that same name on Skype, and that got a little confusing. Robert, I welcome you back to Late Night in the Midlands, and sorry for the confusion.
Are you with me now?
I am with you now. Yes, sir. How are you?
I didn't get your invitation in time, so I had to call you back. The Skype wasn't set up. I thought I was going to get a phone call. But anyway, we're here, and thank you very much for having me.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you tonight. I guess first, how about a little bit of background? What got you going in this area? And I got the pictures, by the way, posted up on LateNightInTheMidlands.com, and people can go check them out. And I'll tell you, that tower, I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about one of those towers anyways.
Right.
I call it the Leaning Tower. It looks like the Leaning Tower.
Indeed, it does, and there's a reason for that. I have the privilege of being tracked by trolls from NASA and JPL who really like to jump on my case and mock it. As a result of some of the pranks they pull on me and try to debunk my work, they've led me to a treasure trove of really secret NASA archives, very high-resolution stuff. And while I was working on one problem that they brought up, they led me to this magazine of Apollo 17, and I started to see anomalies in the lunar skyline, let's call it. And I started tracking what I thought were UFOs. And as I followed one UFO around the moon, went from one picture to the next, I came around the bend and there was a whole slew of them, what I call a constellation of space stations. But as I continued, I was shocked to find that photograph. And instantly I said to myself, that looks like the Empire State Building or Big Ben. I think that looks like Big Ben on the moon. Now, these trolls and debunkers, they claim that that's dust on the film or an anomaly in the emulsion. Again, I'm just showing you a picture that was taken by Apollo 17, a picture that's been in the archives for 42 years, and I just happened to be the one that found it and recognized it, and I show it to you. I say, what do you think that looks like? I told you what I think it looks like, so I named it that. I named it Big Ben on the Moon. And the reason I named it Big Ben on the Moon is that at the time that I made this discovery, which is just about 1 year ago, the British people had joined together through the internet, and they stopped Britain from going to war in Syria. Because there is the New World Order, there is the Illuminati plan to subjugate all mankind, and the plan is based on divide and conquer, by having us destroy each other, either through civil war or through international conflicts. They are leading mankind to self-destruction. And that's actually going to be the theme of tonight's talk, that we have to avoid this pitfall that is being set up for us. And so to honor the British people for having stopped NATO, the United States, Britain, and the rest of them, from jumping headlong into hell in Syria.
Right.
I honor them by calling this thing Big Ben on the Moon, whatever it is.
I just want to say that the cricket sound effect is perfect for the nighttime show, and
it's
you're
very
right.
soothing. I'm glad. They're kind of my trademark now. You know, I actually posted on your Facebook a very beautiful link to some work done by a man named Jim Wilson. And Jim Wilson recorded the cricket sounds and slowed them down. And when you slow them down, you hear what I can only describe as a heavenly choir. So I hope that our listeners will go to your page and click that on at their leisure and really enjoy it. I was amazed, and now I have a project in mind is to contact a professor of music at Lehman College, whom I know, a very talented professor. And I'm going to ask her to transcribe the heavenly choir of the cricket songs to musical notes that can be sung by a human choir. And then we're really going to hear something. So thank you for accepting my crickets. It's part of my experiment in interspecies communication.
And just so people know, those are real crickets. That's not...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have real crickets. I have real crickets. I have real lizards, beetles, and all of their company. I have a tank, a vivarium. And in the vivarium, I originally had a gecko. And the gecko ate crickets. So I'd have to buy 25 crickets a week for the gecko. And the music was beautiful while they were here, but it would just slowly get lower and wane away. So I decided to build something that I call the cricketarium, which is exactly that. It's a tank that has a society of crickets and beetles and other little creatures living there. And it's fascinating to watch interspecies communication. And that's the reason that I have it.
Well, I think it's a nice touch. There's nothing like going out late at night and hearing that. You know,
I'm glad you said that too, because one of you mentioned I'm a psychotherapist, and I do counsel people both, live in my studio, my living room, and also over the internet. I've been a lot of people call me for help dealing with disturbances. Let's just call them of all kinds: emotional, mental, psychic. Paranormal. And as a matter of fact, I was talking to someone in England just a couple of days ago who's having trouble sleeping because of intrusions. And the cricket sounds seem to have a very tranquilizing effect, not just on the people who come here, but everyone, myself included. I really enjoy it. And it's good to expose yourself to the sounds of nature. We're too isolated. One of the things I do in my training, when I say psychotherapy, it's actually psychophysiological therapy, because I learned Tai Chi and I got my degree in psychology, and I studied the work of Dr. Robert S. DeRopp, who wrote a book called The Master Game. And in that book, I saw that he had synthesized a very coherent system of psychology, and it involves the body, the mind, and the spirit. And so I take people out of their regular environments, which is usually offices or, locked up in one place, a train engineer. I wish I'd had that guy for a while to calm whatever happened there. But I take people out to the park, and I make them run, I make them do exercise. I do alignment, skeletal alignment, because that is the secret of Tai Chi. Perfect skeletal alignment. Everyone here who's listening to me has a potential perfect step and a perfect stride and a perfect posture. But our self-images have been so deformed by the mass media that we don't really know who we are anymore. And that's part of the craziness that we see in society, but all around the world. And I find a little sanity in the company of crickets and in exploring things like the moon and Mars and leaving this contrived environment that we're made to suffer every day, I like to say to people, folks, everything in your life around you is real except what you see on TV. And yet we've swapped those realities.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. For me, I was just saying this last night to another guest that for me, the therapy for me is going out like after the show tonight. I'll go out. It's after midnight, and you know, the stars are out and all the crickets are out there making their noise. And as a matter of fact, you could add in the light bugs too.
Right. Oh, the light. Listen, we call them fireflies here.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you something. About 7 years ago, I got on a project, and a video project. I'm an avid videographer. And I went out hunting fireflies, and I had the shock of my life when I went into a field of fireflies and I was chasing them. I had to see them in the dark before they lit up, you know, because that's a hard thing to catch. But I caught one shot, a macro shot of a firefly, that when I viewed it at home on at that time a 27-inch screen, it made my body tremble at the beauty of it. It looked like an angel. Imagine like a 27-inch sized firefly that lights up, and you know what? The camera captured frequencies that the human eye can't see. And it is one of the most amazing little pieces of video that I've ever seen. It was like catching an angel by surprise. So yes, we have to expose ourselves more to nature. We are too isolated in confined quarters and really artificial environment, like the rat mazes that they make in cubicles and offices. That's something that's not really good for your head.
I agree. You know, I had I guess you could call a near-death experience less than a year ago, and since then I've learned to, you know, when I get up, I don't get right to work. I go take a nice long walk and enjoy the daytime nature, as hot as it may be. And then at night, I do the same thing. I take that time out.
I, too, have had several near-death experiences. And when you come back, you really do appreciate life on another level. But you also, I imagine, I hope it is for you, but when you've had a near-death experience and you come back and you were conscious during it, the fear of death fades away. I think, from my experience, I was leaving and I was really going, you know, and I knew it because I started to see the light. But I was in a room with two ladies and a 3-year-old baby, a 3-year-old girl. And as I was leaving, I could see both realities simultaneously, and I was about to drop the body. But I said to God, and I do believe in God, and I have a personal relationship with this person.
Good.
And we'd have dialogue. So I said to God, God, I'm not afraid of dying. This is beautiful. It actually was extremely beautiful, what I was seeing. The reality that was superimposing itself over this one and taking over. It was extremely beautiful and mesmerizing and captivating. But I said, God, this is beautiful, but please, I don't want to die in front of this little girl. If I drop the body here, her mother, her friend will be completely in shock and terror, and she'll be traumatized for the rest of her life. Please, Lord, don't let me die in front of this little girl. And with that, my soul dropped back into my body. Now, if I may, I'd like to describe what leaving the body felt like.
Oh, absolutely.
What happened, I was injured in Kung Fu several years before. I had taken a very wicked kick to the liver, and it had caused problems in my chi system. And my Tai Chi master had healed me and cured me in 1975. Actually, 74. He died in 75. And I had a very profound spiritual experience with his spirit, which made me dedicate my life to Tai Chi. Well, 2 years later, I had a relapse of this condition, the problem. And I wasn't really paying attention to it. And it caused this moment where my soul started to leave my body. I went into tremors. I turned pale. I felt all the blood drain out of my upper body, drained out of my head, out of my face. It went down through my body. But simultaneously, as the blood was draining down, I felt this magnetism rising up my spine like mercury going up through in a thermometer. And then it broke out through the top of my head. And that was me. I was that magnetism that was leaving my body. And it grew up and out of my body, and it enveloped my body so that I felt that my body and even my hair, I had very long hair in braids in those days, but even my hair was inside me, this field of magnetism that was going. And simultaneously, as the magnetism was leaving my body and going above my head and entering this other realm, what I saw was it looked like a chain link fence appeared that was made out of electricity. It was an electric blue chain link fence in which I could still see reality like you would looking through a chain link fence, except that the wiring, the chain links started to grow in thickness, and they started to overcome the view of reality. It's almost like, imagine ice growing on a chain link fence so you can't see through it anymore. Well, it was growing thicker, and then I focused on my friend's eyes. She was looking at me in shock because she could see what was happening. And her eyes were really big, and I focused on her eyes. I glanced at the little girl, and then I focused back on my friend's eyes, and I said, Lord, please don't let me die in front of this little girl. And as I said that, the magnetism started to sink down back into my spinal column, and as it went down my spinal column, all the blood came back up and filled my face, and I had caught my balance by doing Tai Chi in the middle of this. I would have fainted and, fallen over like a tree, timber. But I got rooted, and I pulled my soul back into my body, but that was my request. I didn't want to traumatize this child.
Robert, a listener asked if the links were octagon in shape.
As I recall, they changed shape from a rectangular form. As they grew thicker, they got more sides. But I didn't let it go that far. I knew if I let it go any farther, I would not have returned. But my main concern was for the child. I'll tell you honestly, I had no fear at all, and I had no anxiety. I had amazement, curiosity, and I had understanding of what was going on. And if I really let it go, I would have died in that moment. And as a result, I didn't. And then my friend chastised me. She said, I saw what happened, and you haven't been paying attention to your health. You had the prescription. Your teacher gave you the prescription, and you've just been lazy about not going to Chinatown to get the herbs. And so I went down, I got the herbs, and I got better, and I've never had the problem again. And I have had other near-death experiences that since that time have resulted in this ability to face it without fear. I think a lot of the fear that people have about death is the fear that it's painful. And it may not be that. It's individual, but...
Yeah, and I guess people fear the unknown, and
True.
And that's natural, When I had my heart attack and I finally was out of it, when I came to, I was happy to be here, but at the same time, as I thought back of it, the first couple months, I'd think back on it, and I would think, it could have been already over with and done with, and now I've got to go through that again. That's what I thought.
This is why I chose psychology as my field. Because I think that the human mind is the greatest mystery there is in the universe, and understanding all the different levels of the human mind and its potentials. We're here for a purpose. God gave us this wonderful instrument, a brain and this body, and there's so many things that we can do with it, and we have a greater potential than we've been allowed, actually, because there is a constraint. In the educational system, it's and in many ways it's to curtail your imagination. It's to put it in a box. It's not as free. When you and I were growing up, I think education was very different, and now it's based. Education in my time, I believe, was based on individual excellence, developing personal skills, and your individuality. And now it's all based on conformity and rote.
Yeah, you're right about that. I remember being in school, a lot of hands-on stuff that we would do, and it was. But then as I got into the upper grades of high school, it started going downhill. Really, it did. It started getting where they were just pushing kids through. It's like whatever.
That's the problem.
Yeah, just go on, get through. Doesn't matter what your grade is. No kid left behind.
Yeah, but life is not like that. Life is about success and failure, almost, at every juncture. And the idea that you can have a life with no failures, assured passage, leads you to certain expectations when you are, quote unquote, graduated or an adult that are not realistic. We have to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. So I would like to continue with this near-death experience to recommend, how do you train for death? Yeah. How do you train your brain and your mind and your spirit and your soul for that moment when you're going to leave and die? I would like to remind people about, Steve Jobs. He was surrounded by the people he loved. He died consciously. And a lot of people don't know, but when his last words are very important. As he died, he said, "Wow, oh wow," which doesn't leave me with a great fear and foreboding about whatever made him say, "Wow, oh wow." I think that, so let me get back to how do you train for that moment? Well, I recommend studying remote viewing and trying to develop out-of-body experiences or lucid dreaming. Because in many ways, egressing in remote viewing, leaving the body in that state of consciousness, is almost identical to what I experienced in dying. And I've said it's been more than once. So that's the most significant one. And each time that I have come back, it has become because I asked not for myself, but for someone else. I don't know if it'll work with everyone, so
during
try.
During the time you were out or you were having this experience,
yes.
Did any time pass? I mean, how much time passed?
Oh, it was real time. I mean, I'll tell you that the experience that I've described to you took about 30 seconds. The tremors, the shaking, the blood draining down, the magnetism going up, me realizing I was leaving, seeing the blue light, the white light, the blue light, knowing, and it was conscious. This light was not a reflected light. It wasn't like the sun. This light that I was experiencing was God. What can I say? It was conscious. It was conscious of me. I was conscious of him, it. We had a relationship. It knew me. I knew it, him, and I could talk to him right like that. I said, God, I'm not afraid to die, but I don't want to die in front of this little girl. It was that simple. So it took about 30 seconds. Usually the dialogue gives you a hint about how long it took. So I would say 30 to 40 seconds. And my friend was overwhelmed. She saw my soul leaving. She was a very psychic lady and a very good friend. And she saw me turn green. When the blood leaves you, you turn really pale and sometimes blue or green. And then I brought my energy back. My chi re-entered my body, and I'm alive here to tell the story.
That's fantastic, because when my mother was on her deathbed, at one point she looked up and she was perfectly sane. She wasn't all drugged out, and she pointed up at one point. She was talking to me and my father. Michael, make sure your father takes his medication. Then she stops and she's looking up at the ceiling where the ceiling meets the wall, and she says, "The angels are here." And she's pointing, and we look at each other like, what's she talking about? And she says, she looked at us and says, "You don't see them? The angels are right there." And it wasn't but 24 hours later she passed away. So,
well, I'll put a punctuation mark on this by telling you about my grandfather's death. My grandfather lived to be 80 years old. He died in San Francisco. I didn't see him. And my brother was with him. And my brother says that he just retired. My grandfather retired from life. He laid down. He didn't want to eat. Didn't want to get up. He was comfortable. And my brother wanted to rouse him. And he said, "Oh, Grandpa, come on, you got to get up, you got to eat." And my grandpa said, "Oh, son, come on, I'm dying." And my brother said, "Oh, Grandpa, come on, don't say that, don't say that." And he says, "Oh, son, let me I hear your grandmother calling me." And my brother just really was shocked by that, and he just remained quiet. And then my grandfather said, "And let me tell you something else." He said, "Son," but his grandson. He said, "Let me tell you something else, son. When you're going to die, all the people you loved who died before you, they come to see you. And your grandmother's calling me." And he died the next day. So let's not be afraid of death. When you're afraid of death, you really can't enjoy your life.
That's
if you're walking
true.
around worried that Putin's going to atomic bomb us tomorrow, or ISIS is going to blow up the mall, damn, man, we're Americans, Come on, get a grip.
Yeah, that's true. You got, to live it by. I live by each day. I don't worry about, a week from now or 2 weeks from now. Outside of the normal stuff. I'm not worried about death. Death doesn't.
Well, yeah.
I don't want to die yet. I'm having too much fun, but if it comes to that point, I'm not going to be shivering and terrified of it.
Right. The coward dies 1,000 times. The brave man dies but once. But let me continue with this theme, because it's going to get us to the moon, and I'm going to take you there very directly.
Oh, sure.
It's remote viewing. Remote viewing is a very important faculty, and it's a faculty that I believe all humans had and very well developed until the time that science came forward and dictated that such faculties were impossible. Superstition. They stopped. We had to stop believing in our dreams, intuition, instinct, paranormal and psychic energy didn't exist. And so they cut away this faculty, pared it away in most people. See, they couldn't do it in my family because we're all psychic, and we grew up, with this in the psychic realm of premonitions, dreams that foretold the future, and so on and so forth. So it's an attempt to incarcerate us in a material universe. And so I rebelled against that, and I chose the path of or the field of parapsychology as the road that I would follow. And as a result, I found that the Chinese had been developing parapsychology and parapsychological skills for thousands of years, not bothering to prove that it exists. They thought this stuff is self-evident. Now let's just figure out how to use it. While here in America, when I was in college, J.B. Ryan at Duke University was trying to get people to accept the fact that people had precognitive skills. And so they were working with Zener cards, these cards that have 5 different patterns, and they were asking one person to read it and the other guy to predict it. It was a very, very, low level of development. And yet the others, there are many other gifted psychics in our society, well-known ones like Edgar Cayce and Gene Dixon and others. They made it pretty obvious that this skill did exist and that we could develop it. So I pursued that, and then I came into Kung Fu, which practices a Buddhist outlook on life. I experienced that. But then when I encountered Tai Chi masters and they took me under their wing and learned about Taoism, I found out that was the most viable system of psychology for me, one that involves body, mind, and spirit. The Chinese and we in Tai Chi believe that there is no mind and body dichotomy, that the body is the densest part of the mind. It is the mind that keeps the body in existence. It's the mind that keeps the body in order. And so you may heal your body with your mind, and you may also heal your mind with your body. So this is the premise of Tai Chi, that an unbalanced mind results in an unbalanced body. So even though we may not know what it is that's unbalancing the mind, if we can balance the body, the mind will respond. So in this field, when you engage in this kind of mental, spiritual development, psychological development, these faculties, which are our natural possession, our natural gifts, they start to reemerge. And you do start to have out-of-body experiences, premonitory dreams, intuition, and instincts that wind up saving your life or saving somebody else. And you start to pay more attention. You start to put away that superstition, the idea that this is superstition, you're not being logical. Well, the universe is not really all logical. There are a lot of illogical things about it, too. But in remote viewing, I found a vehicle. I used a book that I recommend to everyone. You can get it in Amazon. It's called Journeys Out of the Body by Robert A. Monroe. I found that book in 1978, and it's become a manual for me in teaching. I do teach remote viewing. I taught a really fine course at the Edgar Cayce Institute a couple of years ago, and it was 4 weeks long. And on the final session, the target was the moon. But I wasn't the first one to do this. Actually, the Stargate project, which was a U.S. Army psychic development project, targeted the moon and sent psychics there to view it. And you can read about it on the internet. There is a book called Penetration by Ingo Swann, I-N-G-O, Swann, S-W-A-N-N. And Ingo Swann in Penetration tells of his career in the Stargate project and how he was directed to remote view communist prisons in Eastern Europe, secret bases, but the most important one for me was his penetration of the moon. He was sent by the Stargate project to find out what was going on the moon, and Ingo Swann relates that he remote viewed alien bases and alien activities on the moon. And this is part of this subject that we're on tonight. I've been exploring the moon for a long, long time. In the 1970s, I used to hear rumors. Well, there weren't rumors. At first, there was official announcements that towers had been seen on the moon. In the early years of space exploration, it was really a much more open. But then, after a while, that kind of openness got shut down. And despite that, in the 1970s and into the 80s, I kept hearing stories that the astronauts had seen towers on the moon, miles high, huge towers, artificial. And then the Russians sent probes, Zond, 1 to 8, and the Lunar probes, and they took photographs, rough photographs, black and white, but it's plainly obvious there that the Russians found towers on the moon, and they were out in the open with it. They were publishing the pictures and discussing them in the Russian Academy of Sciences. And meantime, these fabulous pictures are coming from Russia of huge towers on the moon, and you would never see them in any of our periodicals, magazines, television shows about the moon. So the whole subject was quashed. So I was thrilled last year at this time to discover that photograph from the Apollo 17. But I'm more excited tonight about the...
Robert, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think they're purposely parking out front of your house and turning their sirens on.
Oh, you hear my buddies?
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's like doing a show live from New York City.
Hey, that's okay. I'm not complaining. I think it's funny.
Actually, this is a very interesting thing you've seen. When I started shooting video seriously when I got my own high-resolution camera, I was going all over New York City and hitting rooftops and shooting spectacular views of the cities from way high up. And when I came back and started to play all these tapes, hours and hours of tapes, I found that there is a ubiquitous sound in New York City, and that is the sound of an ambulance and a fire engine and a police car. Sirens are going on all the time, And I realized upon viewing all these videos that I had shot that in New York City, somebody's helping somebody all the time. You know, it's a rescue service that never stops. But somebody always needs help, and somebody's always there to help them.
Yeah,
it was a wonderful insight. I love this city, as I'm sure you can tell.
Oh yeah. Well, you have to love a city to live in it.
Especially this one, because you hear so many bad things about it. But folks, you know, all they tell you on the news are the bad things. There are 10 million people in this city, and we're here because we love each other. And you know what? I lived through 9/11, and I can tell you, the love of New Yorkers for New Yorkers is what got us through the 9/11 crisis. And in the aftermath, that grew even greater. Each of us learned to appreciate every individual. In the month and a half after 9/11 occurred, I saw a really interesting phenomenon occurring, and it involves people's eyes. That when I would meet a stranger on the street, I would have the feeling, man, I'm glad you're alive. You know, I don't know who you are, but I'm so happy that you're here. And people would do a double take. The eyeball, you know, when you focus, you know, the iris, that's not under your control. But I used to see this thing happen that the person would look at me, and the eye would do the iris would move twice, like to get a sharper focus, and would zero in. And the encounter was very direct. You know, most people they may look cross-eyed, but there was a direct encounter between people and a greater openness amongst us. And New York has become a better city, to be honest with you. New York has become a much better city as a result of the tragedies that we endured.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say it's definitely got that yin and that yang. It's got the you got people helping people and you got people hurting people, and you've got that in every city. So
yes, yeah, Chicago's a great city too. All of them. To get back to the moon, there is a picture that I've decided tonight. You're the first person that I have shared it with openly to show it to the world, and that's the photograph of the Arch Bridge. A lot of us have heard stories about bridges in the Mare Crisium and bridges here and ruins of bridges. Well, folks, you look at that and you can see that is not an archaic, ancient, run-down, damaged, stone artifact. That is something extremely out of the ordinary. It looks very recent to me. It looks like it's based on a modular concept of architecture, and I was amazed to find it. That's only one of many other interesting discoveries I've made on the far side of the moon.
Would that would be the blue picture, right?
Yeah, there's a blue and a red. The red picture is a swap of red for blue. You change the blue color to the red color, and sometimes it gives you a better contrast or depth.
It almost reminds me of that St. Louis Arch.
Exactly. You're right. Yeah. Exactly so. It looks like the gateway to the west. Now, interestingly, I sent you another photograph that I call Hiroshima on the Moon, because it looks to me, it reminds me of photographs that I've seen of the devastation that occurred at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And when you go into that photograph, in the upper center right of that photograph, there is remarkable structure involved there. One looks like a hotel that's based like on an egg crate type of architecture, and next to it looks like there's a stadium with the gateway to the west emerging from it, one foot inside the stadium and the other one outside the stadium.
Oh, so then what I'm looking at right here, well, the blackness and the white spots there, so then that would be like a lit up city? Is that what you're saying?
It's lit up by the sunlight.
Okay.
But there are parts in there that are in the dark, of course, that you see the triangular top buildings.
Yes.
at the top there are many structures, let's call them structures, with triangular tops. And then there are other structures that all seem to be about the same height, and they are columnar in structure. They're columns, all of the same height and all of the same diameter. Now, I discovered this photograph about, it's actually a frame from a Chinese satellite that explored the far side of the moon. It was leaked by an Australian lunar researcher, and I picked up on it and froze the frames and improved them. And this area reminds me of Hiroshima, but the important thing is the triangular superstructures and the columns of equal height and equal diameter, because these were described by a sergeant in the United States Air Force named Carl Wolf, who testified for the Citizens for Disclosure in Washington. And he said that in 1964 he was working at Langley Air Force Base, and part of the CIA, part of the CIA spying operation was U-2s, satellite photographs, and Carl Wolf was a maintenance man on the digital machine, the digital printers and digital reproducing machines that they had at the time. So he went to fix a machine, and while he was fixing the machine, the regular attendant of that machine walked over to him and said to him, we found bases on the moon. And Carl Wolf, you can find his testimony on YouTube, and Carl Wolf said that he got really scared because he knew he wasn't supposed to know this. He did not have a need to know it, and he did not have a desire to know it, because he knew he could be in big trouble for knowing it. That's the way it is, So he got a little uptight. And then the guy kept talking about it, and he didn't know what to say. And the guy seemed to need to, relieve himself of this weight of solitary knowledge, as I describe it. And he went over and he got some photographs, and he shows them to Carl Wolf. And Carl Wolf says he looked at them, and then he really started to tremble and shake, because he saw moon bases, and he saw buildings with triangular tops and huge columns, all of the same size and all of the same diameter. So I find this photograph, and I said, my God, am I looking at what Carl Wolf saw in 1964? And I think I am. I think we are. And the reason I bring this up is, again, to emphasize to everyone who's listening, we must all work to stop the powers that be from leading us into self-destruction, annihilation. No one can win a nuclear war.
That's right.
President Kennedy said that we would never engage in a war in which the fruits of victory would be but ashes in the victor's mouth. So that's where we stand, and I see this, my discovery of this area, as a sign, as a warning to us. What happened in Hiroshima happened before. We're finding evidence in India and Pakistan of atomic warfare in ancient times. You read the history of India in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita. You will read descriptions of nuclear holocausts, fireballs 1,000 times brighter than the sun, utter devastation of regions denuded of every living thing, areas into which, if survivors ventured into those areas, they would die of maladies, skin eruptions, things that are written in the Mahabharata were thought to be apocryphal until the U.S. Navy doctors went into Hiroshima and started to treat the victims of Hiroshima. I have the privilege of having seen Hiroshima in a manner that no one, to my knowledge, has yet seen. What they show you on the History Channel is a cover-up. In 1958, I was in the American Nautical Cadets. The USC Cadets became the American Nautical Cadets. And my captain, Captain Peter Luthi, had been with the Office of Naval Intelligence, and he had been stationed in the Pacific during World War II, and he was assigned to go to Hiroshima 1 month after the bombing. And he took color slides of the devastation of Hiroshima. And I saw color slides, gigantic projections in our Sea Cadet troop. I saw the shadows of people impressed on walls. I saw puddles. I saw puddles of people, remains of bodies, charred buildings, animals, anything you could imagine, trees. It was the most horrible thing that I've ever seen. And that night, Captain Peter Luthi asked us all to join together and to vow that we would all work together to ensure that our country would never be the first to use nuclear weapons, and to be sure that we'd work against anything that would lead us to have to use nuclear weapons. And that is why I'm here tonight saying to people, there is an evil force on this planet. It's anti-human. It hates mankind. It wants to cull the herd. It rules by divide and conquer. It rules by deception and deceit. And we have to be smarter than it to survive. So Hiroshima on the moon is a warning to us all.
I see.
The Mahabharata describes a war between the people of Earth and the people of the moon, by the way.
And you know, it really makes sense to me. And Robert, we've got to take a quick break here. We'll be just a few minutes. I'll have to put you on hold here, but when we come back from this break, I'd like to talk more about this picture. I'd like to even get into the missile that they had shot at the moon several years ago, and talk about a few of those things and this whole agenda. So hang on with me for a moment, folks. My guest is Robert Morningstar, and you're welcome to call in. The call-in number is 803-317-2264, but do not call in until after the break. We'll be back, folks. We're talking about the secret space program. We're talking about the moon, history, getting into a lot of very, very good and interesting areas. And we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
You have found the best place on the internet by tuning into K98Talk.com, where it is our mission to broadcast the very best variety programming, giving you a balance of information from every angle and letting you decide. We are here to serve our listening audience with a proven track record. So stay with K98Talk.com and the Spark Radio Network, and we will keep you informed.
Hello, this is Lisa Marie, here to tell you about OxySilver, legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver, Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use 528 Superfood as a great tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight, and Zeolove and natural clays for detoxifying your body. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help Help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948 and buy Oxy Silver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy Oxy Silver, GI Flora Pro, 528 Superfood, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. Cure Shop. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
It's the middle of the night and there's nothing much to do. Bring your insomniac self over to Late Night in the Midlands and learn something. We've got every topic you can think of, and very little being off limits. Alien abductions, government corruptions, the stuff that's got your sleep disrupted. Come join the conversation tales and tune into Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Of the mothership, and we are talking to Robert Morningstar. We've talked about near deaths and out of body, and it's led us to the moon. And I'll tell you, once you get out of that body, you can go anywhere at all. And right now we have landed on the moon, but we're still talking a little bit about Earth too, and we'll get back to that. The call-in number 803-317-2264. You can also call in using Late Night in the Midlands. That's our ID. Skype to Skype, just like that. Late Night in the Midlands. Bam. I ask that if you call in, keep it quiet on your end. That means mute yourself, because if I hear you or you cause any feedback, I get rid of you immediately. So sometimes we get callers, and I have to get rid of them, like right off the bat, because I can't have interferences like that. But the website, latenightinthe.midlands.com, go on over, become a member, and be informed and inform others. And folks, if you're interested in having a show, if you're somebody who, and you got morals, you're not just out there to try to be the next Nori or Jones, and you want to get on this network, you can email either myself or Ira. Ira's in our chat room, so you can go in and talk to him now. If you want me, you got to email me at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com. And Ira's probably thinking, yeah, thanks. Just throw them all at me, Mike. But yeah, he's in the chat room. And also, if you're interested in advertising, banner placement, things like that, it all helps us stay on the air. We only promote what we believe in. We don't, other than that, you won't see it. It's like our Healthy World affiliates, big time. I support them because of what they do, and I have the products here, and they're fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But enough of that, okay? I'm not going to turn into an infomercial here. But what we are going to do is get back to this conversation. And Robert, I was thinking while we were on the break, and of what you were saying about we can't let them annihilate us, and that there's no winners. And you're right. In the long run, there's not. However, I don't know what you want to call them. Some call them the elites. I call them those who are hid behind the veil, the Illuminati, what have you. Those people, they've got these underground cities. They've got underground tunnels and bunkers.
Yeah.
And they've got so much that it's almost like they're prepared.
I can't hear you.
Now
I hear you.
Oh, you do hear? Okay, yeah,
It broke up.
Yeah, there was something. It sounded like a vacuum cleaner or something was going. It could be NSA. I don't know.
Well, regularly when I'm on a show and I start discussing really a controversial subject, there is interference. It's no surprise.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. What I was saying is that those in power, those non-human disgusting maggot people who would annihilate everybody on this planet. They have underground cities, they have bunkers, they have tunnels going everywhere. And so it's almost like they're prepared. Like, okay, we'll do it. We'll hide underground and we'll come back up and clean up after these maggot humans are gone.
Well, I don't view the underground cities stories as so sinister as most people do. You know, you will recall that during the Blitz of London, the only way that the British people, the Londoners, survived was to go underground into the London tubes and camp out for the duration of the Blitz. I think that the powers that be, being the United States government, has big plans for any contingency, and that these underground cities may well be secret refuges for the population should anything really horrible unfold, whether it be nuclear holocaust or some disaster from outer space. So I don't see it as all black or all white. I just see it as a contingency plan that's a wise plan to have. And hell, you know, if all hell breaks loose, we'll know where those tunnels are.
Well, I was going to say, I think you give them a little more trust than I do. I don't think that you or I will be going down into those tunnels. I think other people...
Well, you know, honestly, I wouldn't want to survive.
No, I wouldn't either.
Like, years ago, a friend of mine thought New York was going to be destroyed. He asked me to leave New York and move to another place, safer. I said, listen, Richard, do you think I'd like to live in a world without New York? Do you think I'd like to survive where all the people I love have not? No, I would never leave it. You know, I'd stand up on top of my building and watch it come in. But that's the point. We have the power to make sure that it doesn't come in. Of course, if it's an astronomical cataclysm, just yesterday or today, some huge asteroid went flying by. It's only a matter of time, they say, but mankind has this unique faculty to foresee the future and to plan for it. And I'm sure that part of the secret space program is a plan to intercept asteroids or a comet that might be on its way to Earth and to deflect it. You know, if you wait until this object is really upon us, then it's a very difficult task. But if we have, and we do have, the Deep Space Network that is tracking heavenly objects out beyond the solar system. And so, if we were to find an object that posed a real threat to Earth, if we were to intercept it in the region between Saturn and Jupiter and just give it a little nudge, bing, that's all it would take to deflect it by thousands of miles when it got near the Earth.
Well, they said they wouldn't even have to hit it. They would just have to detonate near it.
Yeah, you know, they're talking about painting them.
Yeah.
This brilliant physicist at NASA said that if we were able to get to the asteroid, for example, that was beating in on Earth, and to paint one side of it, that the paint and its interaction with the sunlight would create enough pressure to deflect it. So I do think that we have these contingency plans already. I think the military is far, far beyond Apollo, beyond the space shuttle. The reason the space shuttle was retired is that we don't need the cover story anymore.
That's
and
true.
It was a hugely expensive cover story. The space shuttle project is very likely a public relations cover story to hide the fact that we have interplanetary spacecraft of a very high order already. A very interesting thing happened last week. Space.com came out with an article stating that NASA had announced that the M drive, the electromagnetic drive, is functional, it's a reality, and that faster than light speed is a possibility.
Yeah, I seen that.
Okay, everybody's seen that, but they don't realize the significance of that little article. You know what it is? It has unthroned Einstein. That's the important thing about that article. The forbidden science that kept relativity theory at the pinnacle of physics and Einstein on the throne has just been debunked.
So he's not king of the hill now.
He's not king of the hill now. And I'm very happy that I spoke out against Einstein when I spoke at the Secret Space Program Breakaway Civilization Conference. I said that if we're going to have a breakaway civilization, we have to have a breakaway civilization consciousness, a breakaway consciousness. And one of the things that we had to move along is to get beyond Einstein. Because Einstein, I describe him as the traffic cop of the 4D universe. He's standing there with his whistle and his sign saying, you can't go faster than the speed of light. I'm going to give you a ticket. So, well, Einstein is a political, more than a scientific figure. Because once relativity was accepted, and it wasn't accepted right away. He came out with it in 1905, and it wasn't until 1919, with the eclipse of 1919, when photographic proof was developed, that yes, the sun, the mass of the sun does bend light, and gravitational fields warp space-time, things like that. So that he was accepted. However, science made great advances beyond Einstein in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and so on. But he fought tooth and nail to keep himself on the throne, and he tried to debunk many worthy physical theories and discoveries. He opposed the quantum physics when it came out. He opposed the idea of the Big Bang. He opposed the physicist Lemaitre. In 1935 or so, a Jesuit physicist named Lemaitre came to the conclusion that the universe had all originated in one point, and that everything had been in that one point, and that there was this huge explosion, and that huge explosion brought the universe into existence. And he called that what was his name for it? The primordial atom. And Einstein fought against that idea, and he denigrated the man's physics equations and put him down. And even into the late 40s, when the Big Bang theory came into vogue. You know that the Big Bang is a derogatory term? There was a physicist that appeared on the radio in 1948, and he was trying to put down this idea that the universe had originated from a singularity, and he referred to it as putting it on this Big Bang theory. There's nothing to it, and that sarcasm really led to the coining of the word that really stuck in the public mind. Big Bang, black holes.
Yeah.
So Einstein was a politician in the end, and he fought at every turn to keep himself on the throne. And even after he died, his teachings, his persona became sacrosanct. You couldn't say one thing against Einstein or about Einstein. And I say that Einstein lied. He kept a lot of things secret, and he also unleashed the atom and the hydrogen bomb on us. So I don't see Einstein as a really good guy. And the evils of Einstein will not be fully known or realized until someday, and I hope it never comes, honestly, when some kind of nuclear exchange happens between two zany nations. And I don't mean us and the Russians. I think that we're too smart to do it. But there are other people on this planet who are more fanatical, and they may do it to each other sooner than we and the Russians.
Yeah, and
in every instance, we have to diffuse that monstrosity. It is a monstrosity.
It is, and some of them have less to lose. You look at these suitcase nukes that Russia had lost so long ago, so-called lost, and so something like that too could change the world overnight.
Well, I would like people to feel more secure, because these are all scare tactics and horror stories. Yeah. I can tell you that the equipment that we have protecting New York can detect any kind of nuclear device scores of miles away.
And Robert, with that, I want to say I totally agree with you, and I'm glad you said that, because that's why I feel like when we do get hit here, when something does happen here, they knew about it, but somebody didn't care. Somebody let it go.
That's right. It's more likely to be an in-house operation. Like a lot of people think that is far-fetched to say that the government or an agency of the government could even think of doing things like this that we're discussing, attacking our own country for their purposes. However, it is not far-fetched. We have the documents in hand. We have them. Those documents are called Operation Northwoods, and they came out in 1960s, the early 60s. In 1962, it was proposed to President Kennedy by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that the Army should stage a terrorist attack in Miami that would be blamed on Castro and pro-Castro Cubans as an excuse to attack and invade Cuba. President Kennedy was shocked. He fired Lyman Lemnitzer, who had proposed it. He shook up the whole Joint Chiefs of Staff. Heads started to roll. But I say this. President Kennedy stopped Operation Northwoods in 1963. However, Operation Northwoods did not stop. They kept it going. And what they did, instead of having a bomb blow up in Miami that would be blamed on the Cubans, Operation Northwoods was restaged a year later, and it was the John F. Kennedy assassination. The John F. Kennedy assassination was the first global terrorist event, and its purpose was to conduct trauma-based mind control on the American people as a mass. It was an act of mass psychology to terrorize the nation, to make us lose confidence in ourselves, and ultimately lose confidence in all our belief systems, to create a trauma that would fester and weaken us over time. And only the truth about the John F. Kennedy assassination can free us from the delusions that have been imposed upon us by the powers that be to prop up that big lie. And happily, it is happening. I dedicated a large part of my life to resolving the mysteries, and I have succeeded in many ways. I've debunked the Zapruder film. The Zapruder film is an optical illusion, consciously engineered to alter space-time and the laws of physics to make you believe a lie. You see the Zapruder film today, you are seeing what the murderers want you to believe happened. If you believe what you see in the Zapruder film is real, you're no better off than a bunch of munchkins in Oz. And that is where they got the idea, my friends. They got the idea of controlling America like a bunch of munchkins from that movie. However, they had to wait until 1963 before they had the technology whereby they could, as they say, pull the wool over our eyes and impose a mass hallucination. And that's exactly what the Zapruder film is. I would like to recommend to the audience watching a movie on YouTube called JFK to 9/11. Everything is a rich man's trick. This movie is 3.5 hours long. but it's the most coherent and intelligent and accurate telling of 20th century history, from World War I and pre-World War I economics through the Kennedy assassination through 9/11. It's a panoramic view of American history. It's very accurate, it's very detailed, and I'm very proud to say that the producer chose to focus on my work on the JFK assassination as the resolution of the mystery, and he's done a wonderful job. His name is Francis Richard Connolly, with one L, I believe. And everything is a rich man's trick. JFK to 9/11. Do yourself a favor and let's get back on track with our real history.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And the secret space program is another big part of his assassination. I mean, JFK was an American revolutionary. He was moving very, very quickly to rein in rogue agencies like the U.S. Army trying to pull Operation Northwoods. I mean, how more rogue can you get than killing your own people to satisfy war lust? See?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the CIA and the operations in Cuba. But more importantly was President Kennedy's direct communication with Premier Khrushchev, the Soviet Union, through the hotline. The hotline was like email is today. It really wasn't a telephone. It was a way of communicating, instantaneously translating teletype that from here to the Soviet Union and back. And President Kennedy had about 35 conversations with Nikita Khrushchev proposing détente. 10 years before Nixon, President Kennedy was proposing détente. He was proposing a joint venture to the moon with the Russians. But most importantly, in a memo that he wrote to the Director of Central Intelligence on November 12, 1963, he demanded a reclassification of all unknowns. That means UFOs. He wanted a complete reclassification because the secrecy was so pervasive that no one knew whose was what. And by that I mean there were so many secret projects that the Navy didn't know what was the Air Force secret project. The Air Force didn't know what the Army and Navy secret projects were. None of them knew each other's projects. And then they suspected the Russians. But even in the Russian unknowns, there was a whole body of unknowns that didn't fit the Russian mold. And so what President Kennedy was trying to find out, what were Russian secret space programs, what are our secret space programs, and who else is out there. And somebody else was out there, and it was obvious to President Kennedy, to Premier Khrushchev, and to the Joint Chiefs of Staff that that other was trying to instigate a nuclear war between Russia and the United States. UFOs called fast walkers would appear over the North Pole and start zipping down over Canada, heading toward the United States, making NORAD think that the Russians had launched a nuclear warhead at the United States, pushing us into DEFCON 3, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 1, and getting ready for a nuclear exchange. At the last minute, at last second, it would deviate and go off into outer space. And they were playing this game of chicken with the Russians and with us, scaring both of us into thinking that the other was attacking. So President Kennedy wanted to really figure out what this was. Whose unknowns are those? And so he asked for the reclassification, and he asked NASA to work directly with the Russian Academy of Sciences to plan joint ventures in science and space explorations. And that document has a margin note that says, Angleton has the MJ executive. And Angleton is James Jesus Angleton, who was the chief spook at the CIA. And MJ-12 is the Majestic 12 group, which is the overlordship of the UFO issue in America. They were the ones that controlled all the information and how to deal with leaks and things like that. So President Kennedy was killed for many reasons. This Federal Reserve, he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. He started printing silver-backed money, the civil rights movement. He was going to pull us out of Vietnam. He had already given the order for 1,000 troops to be removed from Vietnam in December, and the rest of them in 1964. He said it was up to the Vietnamese to fight their own war. And so the powers that be, the military-industrial complex, the anti-Castro faction in the CIA, they just turned Operation 40. Operation 40 was a CIA operation to attack Cuba and assassinate Castro. And he ordered that shut down, but it kept going. And so Operation 40 was turned on President Kennedy. And that rogue group of the CIA, the anti-Castro faction, planned and executed Dallas, November 22nd, 1963. The sacrifice of the king in the center of the first Masonic temple in the state of Texas was in Dealey Plaza. And Dealey Plaza is an open-air temple to Freemasonry. And the President Kennedy's murder was dressed up in religious robery that involved astronomy, astrology, numerology, and many arcane things.
So
we can do a program on that all itself later on toward November, but he was killed to keep the secret space program secret.
So very ritualistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just one little hint. I mentioned the Federal Reserve. I mentioned that President Kennedy wanted to get rid of it. November 22nd, 1963, was the 50th anniversary of the foundation of the Federal Reserve. November 22nd, 1963, was the 656th anniversary of the slaying of the Templars and the burning of Jacques de Molay by the Catholic King of France with the blessing of the Pope, leading to this 656-year-long civil war, basically, between the Templars factions and the Catholic Church. And the Templars, as we know, were the founders of modern banking. So the Federal Reserve really is the modern-day Templars. And they chose November 22nd, 1963, to commemorate the foundation of the Federal Reserve and the slaying of Jacques de Molay, to conduct a great act of revenge upon the Catholic Church, an assault on Christianity, in fact, because the sacrifice of President Kennedy was offered up to the evil star, the evil star in the constellation Scorpio. And they chose that date for another reason. Astronomically, November 22nd, 1963 is astronomically the same date on which Osiris was killed in Egypt, assassinated by his twin brother Seth. So the astrology and the astronomy and this arcane religious pageant is now exposed. It's really pretty clear, at least to me. You know, President Kennedy, on the morning he arrived in Dallas, said to Dave Powers, his chief of staff, he said, you know, last night would have been the perfect night to assassinate a president of the United States. President Kennedy knew what was going on. He knew that he was being stalked. He at least since November 18th. Because November 18th, 1963, he appeared at the Orange Bowl in Miami. And he was supposed to have a motorcade from the airport to the Orange Bowl. But at the last minute, the Miami Police Department had been recording conversations between William Somerset and Joseph Miltier, the number 3 man in the Ku Klux Klan. And they found out in that conversation that was recorded on November 8th, 1963, that there was a plan afoot, that they were stalking President Kennedy and Martin Luther King. and that they were planning to kill President Kennedy with a high-powered rifle from a high office building, and that they were planning to pin it on a scapegoat, that they would pick up somebody within 2 hours of the killing and pin it on him. The most interesting thing to me about this tape, I have a copy of the tape and I have a transcript of the tape. The most interesting thing to me is the description of the stalking of President Kennedy by members of the Ku Klux Klan who planned to assassinate him when he stepped out on the veranda of a porch, perhaps the White House or some other place. They were planning the White House. They said that they were going to get a hotel room opposite the White House, and when they saw him come out for a function, the White House wasn't closed off as securely as it is now, and that they were planning to kill him by shooting him on the veranda. Now there you have, in 1963, a perfect description of the assassination of Martin Luther King, who came out on a veranda in 1968 and was knocked off by apparently members of the Memphis Police Department and the Ku Klux Klan, which was pervasive in it. So
yeah, it's what's crazy to me is that Kennedy did know. He knew that they were out to get him, and
yes,
he made it easy for him, it seems.
Well, you know what? President Kennedy ordered that the Secret Service men not be on the back of his car, and I believe that was because he didn't want somebody else to take a bullet for him. He had been in World War II. He had had that terrible experience on PT-109. He had lost men. Some had died and some had been grievously wounded. And I believe that knowing that the assassination plot was on, he did not want somebody else to die in his place. And that's why I believe he called off the riders on the back of the limousine.
Well, it might have been for the better of mankind. I mean, we could have, get taken apart the CIA and things like that would have been a really nice thing to do.
Well, it's taken a long time, but I think it's happened. I don't know if you know, but the CIA has been reorganized, I think 2 months ago. Again, they don't hype that up in the New York Times, and they don't, put it all over CNN. But yes, the CIA has gone through a major reorganization under Mr. Brennan, who I'm happy to say is also a graduate of Fordham University. I remember passing him on the campus, as a matter of fact. I was a couple of years ahead of Mr. Brennan. He graduated in 74. I was supposed to graduate in 72, but took off a few years to develop myself, and then finished up at Hunter College and got my degree. So no, there's things happening, and it gives me hope. It gives me hope that
Well, good. I'm looking at these pictures. I want to drift back over to the pictures here for a moment.
Sure.
And
Let's
now
talk about it.
we're looking at this city, the city on the moon here.
Hiroshima on the moon.
Yes. And down at the bottom, am I seeing? Is that the face on Mars that I'm seeing down there? Or
No.
is that something like it? I mean,
well, there's a thing called pareidolia. It's a psychological faculty of human beings to look at something and see forms. But I'll tell you what you do see at the bottom of that picture.
It looks
that I
like
think
it.
is absolutely fascinating. In the middle, at the very bottom, you will see something that looks like a giant E in reverse. Do you see it?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, yeah.
I think that's rather remarkable.
And you can see it's above ground.
It's above ground.
Yeah.
It's quadrangular. It looks like it has windows and doorways and walls. And then to the right of that, you see another upright form, which looks like the remnant of a high wall that was shattered and it's casting a shadow. Now, that photograph is really fast. I would recommend that people download it in order to really study it. Because when you start to go into different segments of it, it's a really big photograph. However, when you start to go in and study segments of it, you're going to find the arch that comes out of what I call the stadium in the center. You're going to find lines that look like streets and avenues. You're going to see sections that have half domes, partially collapsed domes. You're going to see things that look like streets and avenues intersecting. You're going to find columns of the same height and the same diameter, arranged in semicircular forms. It is a remarkable photograph, and I'm only scratching at the surface with it there. There's much more to be found and much more to be shared. But my purpose is to stimulate curiosity. I want people to go into the NASA archives and JPL and explore and discover. And see if you can buy a telescope or borrow one. Go out and take a look at the real sky and the real moon and get familiar with it. It's all part of our world, you know?
Yeah, it is.
It belongs to us.
No.
But not the moon. The moon belongs to somebody else. I'd like to recommend that show. I sent you the link. I don't know if you'll put it up, but it would be good if you did, because the third phase of the moon is a YouTube channel, and Blake Cousins and I did a 21-minute show where he actually compiled many of the photographs that I described earlier that are not on your website, the Russian photographs and the Big Ben on the moon and several others. But he doesn't have that picture of the bridge that I sent you. You're the first person that's publishing the Arch Bridge on the far side of the moon.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, where exactly did this one come from? Did this come from the Chinese or the Russians? Who or was this from the Apollo?
That one comes from the one agency that I believe tries to tell the American people the truth all the time, as much as it can. There's a rivalry in space, and it's been there for a very long time, and that rivalry is between the Army Air Force faction and the United States Navy. And this rivalry is the reason that we have this word, aerospace, you know? That word didn't exist in the old days, aerospace. And the reason it came into existence is that everybody knows that President Kennedy was a Navy man, and he favored the Navy, right? So he had really very strict ideas about, domains. The Army controls the land, okay? The Air Force controls the air, but the Navy should control the ocean of space, you see? Mm-hmm. And so when he was pushing this Navy exploration of space, the Air Force and the Army had to get their act together, and they had to say, no, we got a claim on it. It's aerospace, right? So the rivalry even brought into existence this new word to actually describe the turf war. But the United States Navy has had the longest standing experience with UFOs of any of the services. And in fact, they were given a charter in the early part of the 20th century to explore the paranormal, which includes UFOs. And the UFO phenomenon was operant in World War I. There were a lot of USOs, underwater, unidentified submerged objects. And then in the 1942, the Battle of LA, our airplanes actually seem to have shot down the craft, and it seems to have gone into the water off Catalina, and the United States Navy appears to have recovered a big chunk of it, if not the whole thing. And the Navy has been a vanguard of UFO information and trying to get the truth to the American people. As a matter of fact, in 1962, February of 1962? I think it was February of 1961, that Admiral Sowers, United States Navy, former head of the Central Intelligence Agency, coined the phrase "flying saucers serious business." He leaked a memo that the United States Air Force was forcing its airmen not to talk about UFOs and pretending that UFOs did not exist. And Admiral Sowers and Helen Cotter was the other one. Admiral Hillenkotter, pointed out that flying saucers are serious business in the United States Air Force. So the Navy has been trying to enlighten the public about the UFO phenomenon, and the Air Force and the Army have been quashing it. And so this photograph that I'm sharing with you comes from one of those guys, the white hats, that try to tell. They don't tell, they show, and hope for somebody to see it. So this is from a Clementine photograph of the far side of the moon. United States Navy project Clementine, orbiting the moon and mapping the moon and showing us the real colors of the moon, because that's another cover-up. The moon is not a dead gray planet. Look at the photographs, the color photographs that are being released by the Chinese Chang'e 3.
Robert, where can we see? Where can we go to see? Like, I mean, where is there links? Do you have links that I could give out for the other space agencies of where these other pictures are, so we could get more eyes on this stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I'm reluctant to give the actual links, because I have found that when I've given out the actual links in the past, they're quickly disabled.
Well, no. I mean, like, what do you go to NASA to find these photos?
Well, some are NASA, some are some is in the NASA archives, the Apollo archives. The one that I sent you of the Big Ben on the moon, that comes from the Apollo 17 archives. And those, yes, you can go. I can send you the links to those catalogs and those magazines.
Yes, that's what I want.
And
I don't want
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. I think everyone... Hey, folks, you own these things. They're yours. They're not the government's. They belong to you, and not to anybody else.
That's right.
So
now,
that's my take on freedom of information and who really owns these things.
Is it just as easy to see the Russian pictures and stuff? I mean, do they have a site as well that you can go to?
Well, no, I haven't found a Russian site that provides these photographs, but I do Google and I search, and there are individual websites that have compiled these photographs, and I recommend the Zond, Z-O-N-D, the Zond photographs. There are some other towers I discovered in on the far side of the moon, and I tell the story very briefly in that third phase of the moon, alien megaliths on the moon. I tell the story of how I was working with the Zond 1, the Zond 3, and the Zond 8 photograph over many years of time. And I found certain odd-looking things in the Zond 1 photograph. And they're very coarse and grainy. And then they sparked my curiosity. It just didn't look, well, normal, if we can use that term for the moon. So then, a few years later, I found the Zond 3 photograph, and I went to the same region, and it was a clearer picture of this tower as I was perceiving it. And then, a few years later, I got the Zond 8, and each time the tower became clearer and clearer. And then I found a Clementine photograph with the clearest photograph of this region and this crater that's called Ellerman Crater. But the unique thing about Ellerman Crater is that it's about 47 miles high, but it has a superstructure on top of it that looks like a satellite dish. So I keep an eye open for things that look unusual. And then I look for other photographs of the region, and then I plot courses and track things down. And then I also have lucky breaks, like that the bridge. You know, I found a photograph with Ellerman Tower, and then as I was exploring it, I found that arched bridge, and you know, it's a rather beautiful thing to see. Of course, it raises many questions. It
is. I mean, you know, it's too bad that citizens, you know, like yourself and me, and just all of us can't get together some kind of fundraiser and send our own probe around the
Exactly.
moon.
You know, I've been thinking about that. I went to a conference of top gravitational physicists here in New York about 2 years ago, And a fellow named Michael Reardon came up and he gave a talk about this little satellite that he had developed and was going to be launched up. And, you know, the microtechnology that we have nowadays is remarkable, the miniaturization. And his little box was maybe 12 by 18 inches in size, a box. And he showed it, and he said that this was going to be launched, and it was going to be orbiting the moon and sending back high-quality photographs of the moon, higher resolution than we'd had even before that. So that it is possible for individual companies, corporations, groups of people to start to think about sending our own probes up there. It's not as far-fetched as we would think. You know,
no,
just have to get the know-how is out there, the funding, and is what is needed.
Well, you know, then you got to think. I mean, are they going to let us? I mean, is it going to disappear? Is it going to disappear when it gets out there?
Well, you know, NASA is under a delusion that it thinks it owns the moon, and I think that delusion was best exemplified when they call for a no-fly zone over the Apollo landing sites. You remember that?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, it's like the FAA saying you can't fly drones over Washington, you know, because we own Washington. But they came out and said, we forbid any other nation to fly over the Apollo landing sites.
Now, there's activity that goes on the moon. I know I've seen video of these spaceships leaving the moon, and
yes,
so there's stuff still going on there. It's not like it's just ancient ruins.
Oh, it's not ancient. No, it's a hive. I really believe that the moon is a hive of space activities. For the most part, the major part of it is on the far side of the moon. However, I recommend to people that there's a couple of YouTube channels. I like to encourage the work of others and acknowledge it. There's a fellow named Dark Skywatcher 74, and he puts out YouTubes, and he has his own astronomy laboratory, and he's got very high quality equipment that's tracking the moon, and he puts it up. And he has captured some of the most remarkable things crossing the moon that I've yet seen, and very detailed close-ups of certain areas of the moon where you can actually see the different colors of the surface of the moon. And as I get back to the colors of the moon, NASA has been graying out all the photographs. Most of them are black and white. And occasionally you can see the color you can see the colors of the moon changing if you were lucky enough to get the videotapes, the color videotapes that were shot in the last few missions. However, the Chinese are sending back photographs and videos, and the photographs that they've sent back from the Mare Imbrium, where they landed the last satellite, shows a lot of brown and red dirt with green patches on it.
Yeah, I seen that. I thought so. You know, I'm thinking somebody must have colored it in for some reason, but no.
No, it's the opposite. NASA took the colors out of a lot of the photographs. There's an essay on the internet by a man named Steve Troy, Troy, like Helen of Troy, Steve Troy, and it's a brilliant essay on the true colors of the moon. So if you Google Steve Troy, the true colors of the moon, you'll get a lowdown on how NASA bleaches its photographs to make it look like a dead moon. They also wanted us to believe in a dead Mars for years. Have you noticed how for the last few years how Mars has started to look like Arizona and New Mexico?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Blue sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dunes, water, rivulets, pools. Michael, I found a video, and again, look, NASA has a lot of good guys in it, and they are under these constrictions, but they try to get it out too. And a few years ago, I got a videotape. I threw in a videotape while watching the NASA channel, and they had a compilation of the best photographs that Curiosity and Spirit rovers and Opportunity had taken, and then compiled them. And something told me, throw in a tape, start taping this. And lo and behold, at the end of the sequence, they showed what looked to me like a wet beach, a beach at which the tide had pulled out and left tidal pools. So I'm really curious, because this is more water than I've ever seen on the surface of Mars. And at the end, the camera's panning to the left and rising, and at the edge of the screen, for the last few seconds, I saw a beach with waves rolling in and breaking on a beach on Mars. Now, the remarkable thing about this video was that the waves were not moving the way waves move on Earth. They weren't rising as high. They weren't rolling as quickly. And I said to myself, wow, there's the proof. Look at the behavior of this water.
Robert, I want to see all this stuff. Anything
that I showed, I leaked those frames to Coast, I was on with George Noory last year, again, just about a year ago, and I had spoken about some photographs that I found of the Dingo Gap and artifacts all over the place. If you really want to see Mars, go to Facebook and look up a man named Rami Bar Ilan, R-A-M-I-B-A-R, Elan, E-L-A-N. This man has really great eyes. He has a total passion for the planet Mars, and he has been discovering the most remarkable artifacts scattered all over the surface of Mars. And we work together. Occasionally we share photos. I encourage people to pay attention to his work. He's very creative.
If you would throw him my contact, I would appreciate that dearly, because...
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll enjoy speaking to him. He's a very bright fellow, and, I told him, I think you're Martian. But I say the same thing about myself, because it is my belief that the human race did not originate on planet Earth. And
I'm with you.
You know, if you see the movie Mission to Mars, you will see what I've said, that the human race originated on planet Mars and migrated here in thousands and thousands of years ago. Well, that sounds like a crazy science fiction story. Well, when you see the movie Mission to Mars, which had the wholehearted assistance of NASA in its production, at the end of the film, when they walk into the face on Mars, they walk into a holographic representation of the solar system, and you see meteor impacts hit Mars and destroy the ecosystem of Mars, and it symbolically illustrates a migration of the Martian civilization to another star system, but the deployment of one starship to planet Earth that seeded life in the oceans. So the lid is being lifted very slowly. I remember in 1965 hearing Frank Edwards on a TV show, a talk show in New York called The Alan Burke Show, and he said that his contacts in the CIA had told him, yes, UFOs are real, extraterrestrials are around, but the public can't handle that. But we have a plan to slowly acclimatize the public to this idea so that it isn't so frightening. And it's going to be executed in 7 plans, seven seven-year plans. That over in 49 years, the extraterrestrial presence would be revealed slowly to mankind, and that it would be done through movies. In 1965, he said, in the 1970s, you're going to start to see movies like you've never seen before. You're going to see a technology that would be incredible today, but it's all in the works. And these movies are going to acclimatize the public to get over their fears of aliens and extraterrestrials. He says, as you recall, in the 1950s and even now in the 1960s, most of the films that we see are monsters from outer space. You know, they're frightening. But in the 1970s and beyond, you're going to see movies that will depict extraterrestrials in a different light, less frightening, more benevolent. And what did we get? At the end of 1968, we got, at the end of 68 or the 1960s was Robinson Crusoe on Mars. And then, of course, we had Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and Gremlins, on and on. And it seems that Steven Spielberg was brought on board and given a lot of information and told how to reveal the Wookiees, the Wookiees to us. You know? Wookiees are flying around in starships and whatnot.
They probably are. I mean, you know, when we've talked in the past about people with the Nibiru thing, and I said, you know, how do you know Nibiru wasn't like some Death Star, like from Star Wars?
Yeah.
And maybe it got its name because those were the letters on the side of the ship. I mean,
yeah. Well, you know, this is becoming more important as time goes by. The Sumerian foundations. I won't say the Sumerian myths because Sumeria and the Sumerians had amazing knowledge. I just started reading a book tonight, which has me fascinated, and it is called Our Ancestors Came from Outer Space by Maurice Chatelain. Maurice Chatelain was a NASA engineer, and he, in the 1978, wrote a book, Our Cosmic Ancestors, and that became Our Ancestors Came from Outer Space. But I'm fascinated by what I'm reading in this book. He talks about the numerical constants of Nineveh. It seems that when they translated cuneiform, they translated Sumerian history and culture, but they found this tablet that had a whole long list of huge numbers, we would say astronomically large numbers, and no one really knew what they were. And Maurice Chatelain started to work with these numbers, and he came to the realization that the numbers represented the time that it takes to orbit, the sun for all the planets. The time it takes the planets to orbit the sun in seconds. So instead of years or days, they had calculated the orbits of the planets around the sun down to seconds of time. And he was able to recognize this, and he's written this marvelous book that few people know about, but it's available on the internet. Maurice Chatelain, 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 Maurice, French name, and it's a PDF. I recommend people look it up, type it in. Our ancestors came from outer space, and that is precisely what the Sumerian myths or history tells. And that is what Nibiru and the Anunnaki is all about.
See, I agree with you. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's what I believe, too, that I think that if you look at the evidence and you look at the comparisons, like some of the structures on Mars compared to like in Egypt and things like,
yes.
It makes sense to me.
Yes, I agree. It made sense to Carl Sagan and Philip Morrison and the people at JPL who were mapping Mars. When they saw Mars, they got it right away. They named areas of Mars. Syria, Sinai. It seems that the Egyptians knew about the Tarsus volcanoes, the Tarsus Montes and Olympus Mons on Mars. So this is revealed knowledge, and this is what Chatelain says about the Sumerians. No one knew what these numbers were when they were discovered. The translation of Sumerian script was only occurred in the early 20th century. And so they found a tablet that only had numbers, and they were huge numbers. And so he said archaeologists are not really interested in math, so they didn't bother with the numbers. But he was interested in math, and when he started studying the numbers, he broke their code. And he has deduced that the numbers on this cuneiform tablet called the Nineveh constants are calculations of the orbits of the known planets. Well, unknown planets to the Sumerians, because they included the orbits of the planets that we can't see without a telescope. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they're included in there. And the time of their orbits is in seconds. And it appears, according to Chatelain, that the whole idea of time measurement and time scales was imparted to the Sumerians by an extraterrestrial civilization. How could the Sumerians deduce or calculate the time it takes for Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto to orbit the sun when they can't even be seen, even with really good telescopes? It's very hard to see them. How much harder to calculate their orbits in seconds. So I'm fascinated by the book. I've heard of Maurice Chatelain for a very, very long time. He was involved in communications during the Apollo missions. And in 1978 he produced this book, and it's really fascinating. I didn't pay a lot of attention to the Sumerians until in recent years. I was more interested in the Egyptians and the Mesoamericans, but the Sumerian story is a really fascinating history, and a man named Gerald Clark has written a fascinating book on it, about the Anunnaki. I heard him on a talk show. I'd recommend him for your show anytime. He's brilliant.
Yeah, I would love to have him. I mean, I'm fascinated by the topic because I think it's our real history, and it's what's been being held from us for a whole lot of reasons. Robert, we got to take one last break here, and then I'll come back, and you and I will finish up. Okay, so hang on with us for a moment, folks. My guest is Robert Morningstar. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and you're welcome to call in. Last shot, 803-317-2264, or you can call in using Skype ID, Late Night in the Midlands, and we'll be back in just a few moments, folks, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back. The L&M Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe-midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the listen live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe-midlands.com.
L&M Radio has joined with the Hardened Structures team to provide state-of-the-art survival shelter design and build services at L&M Radio exclusive rates. Hardened Structures, with over 21 years experience in military, commercial, and private shelter design build services, are also offering L&M Radio listeners a free consultation, normally a $500 value. So click on the Hardened Structures banner on the home page or the chat and listen page and have peace of mind that no matter what happens, your family is protected.
The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you. You want the truth? Late Night in the Midlands knows you deserve it. That's why we make it easy for you to listen at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Go on over, become a member, be informed, and by all means inform others. Folks, we're not your average radio show. We cover everything. Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. LNM is always looking for sponsors, so if you are interested in sponsorship or advertisement on air or on our website, contact us at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com. If you're interested in rebroadcasting or picking up the live feed for Late Night in the Midlands, then contact us at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com and help us help you.
It's the middle of the night and there's nothing much to do. Bring your insomniac self over to Late Night in the Midlands and learn something. We've got every topic you can think of with very little being off limits. Alien abductions, government corruptions, the stuff that's got your sleep disrupted. Come join the conversation tales and tune into Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera.
And by all means, join our chat and listen. See, we're not trying to rake people dry and get rich. You know, we're no get rich schemes here like you'll find on other places like in Search, where there's always a get rich scheme. And we don't do, for us, we give you the information for free. We don't charge you for it. The archives are there, and we got great people, a great team here at L&M now, and things are getting done. They're getting done the way they should, and it's all free for you. We do ask that you subscribe. Now, there's some a few things that come with subscriptions. Nothing glorifying. We give you video interviews, special video interviews that everyone else don't get. Although those have been on pause for right now because we need to get a new camera in here. And there's some other things that we're actually working on right now. We've obviously switched the website, so I can't say exactly what's going to be included when we're all done here. But I can tell you this, the one thing you are doing is you're helping the L&M radio network stay on the air, and that's important because you're not going to get this on CNN. Yeah, you'll get some of this on like a coast, but you're not going to get, not as deep as we'll go. I mean, they're not allowed to go that deep, but we are. So we're going to continue this conversation, and I ask that you just support us and help us out. We don't ask for much. We believe that the truth will set you free, so we give it out free. I mean, how can I say that tonight's show, this information is so important, but then lock it up on a price tag? But I can see why some shows do that. They get angry because they're not getting the support. Thankfully, I can have a smile on my face and say that people are giving us the support that we need to keep it free for those who can't afford to help out. So we appreciate that. We definitely appreciate that. And we're going to... Oh, I'll make sure for a minute there. I thought I had my mic off. I was like, wow, that sucks. But but I didn't. So that's a good thing. But let's bring the guest back, Robert Morningstar. And we do have him linked up on latenightinthe-midlands.com, the picture slider on the front page. And I want to say there's a tonight. Yeah, there is. There's a tonight's guest. You'll see it there. And click on it, and it's all linked up. Also, there's the tonight's picks for tonight's show. You click that tab as well, and you'll see pictures and links there too. So, and plus, I'm going to let the guest give you all that before we're done here tonight. Robert, we're back, and in this, we got about, another 10, 15 minutes around that area. What would you like to get out to everybody? What would you like to finish with tonight? I'm amazed with the whole Moon and Mars thing. I think that while people are digging holes in the Middle East, my eyes are posted to the sky because I think that's where it all stems from.
Yeah, Dr. Carol Rosen said the secret to world peace is to be found in outer space. And she was one of the speakers at the Secret Space Conference, Secret Space Program Conference in San Mateo. And I would like our listeners to log on to secretspaceprogram.org. I gave you the link there, and you will see 8 lectures, including mine, that were given in San Francisco on the secret space program, and you'll realize the importance of exposing the secrecy and reclaiming what belongs to us. I would like to point out that Catherine Austin Fitz, who worked for, at one time, Assistant Secretary of HUD, H-U-D, she exposed how $40 trillion has been siphoned out of our treasury and out of our economy and funneled illegally into black operations and secret black programs of the military. Richard Dolan deals with national security documentation. It's called, his book classic is UFOs and the National Security State. John Rappaport talks about the secret space program and the global theater, the staging of a false reality to hide that. Mark McCandlish worked with major aerospace companies. He's an engineer. And Michael Schratt gave an excellent expose of the various secret space programs that he's been able to find out through studying aerospace literature and freedom of information. And Dr. Carol Rosen spoke about her experiences with Dr. Werner von Braun, and how Werner von Braun warned her in the 1970s that there was a plan to conduct perpetual warfare in order to keep the military-industrial complex going. And the perpetual warfare involved the war on terror, the war against astronomical disasters like huge meteor and asteroid impacts, and ultimately a fake war against extraterrestrials that they were planning to use to unify mankind against this global threat, that they believed that would be the ploy that would force mankind to come together. And it was hinted at by Ronald Reagan, when he spoke at the United Nations. He spoke about how easy it would be, how quickly we'd get together if we were threatened by an alien force from outer space. But then Reagan wisely said, well, aren't we not already under attack from such a force that we call war? And so that is the enemy. War is the enemy. And nuclear war is the ultimate enemy. And we must all start to think about an alternate outcome. We have to stop believing in the inevitability of Armageddon. Armageddon is a symbol. It is not a fact. And if you buy into the idea that it is inevitable, then you are contributing to the end of the world. I like to say to people, I don't believe in the end of the world, because growing up, I grew up Catholic, and I said a lot of prayers, and a lot of them ended world without end.
Well, you know what? I say the world will probably never end, but we might.
The world will go on. We're talking about the world of the inside of people's heads,
Right.
So I believe in world peace. I believe in opposing tyranny everywhere, and I'm opposed to the fanaticism of ISIS and the perversion of religion for selfish reasons, for selfish causes, And Islam does pose a great threat to the world. It can be dealt with in an unatomic way. Okay? So that's what I'd like to leave people with, and to go to the NASA archives and explore the moon, discover something, share it with the world, tell the people your truth, defend it. If your facts are correct, you will be accepted. If your facts are wrong, they're not facts, you will be corrected, and then you'll be in a better place for having been corrected. So that's the learning curve that we have to follow,
Well said, Robert. And I'm going to be certainly this weekend, when I get a couple free hours to play around, I think I'm going to be trying to look at some pictures too. See, I must not have the keen eye, because you guys like you and another guy I know, Gary Leger, you guys, and there's so many more who find these wonderful pictures, and I wonder how many hours of searching does it take you to locate something like that?
Well, sometimes it's months or years, and sometimes it's just inspiration. Sometimes you just click a link and you say, what's that? And it's just there. That's how discovery happens.
And it's important that because you know how people are so in a hurry nowadays to be the first one to put the story up, that they make so many mistakes in it, right? So,
well, I make my fair share of mistakes when I misspeak, and my friend Kim Philby on Facebook is always reminding me of that. So,
yeah, I've got a few people who remind me
good night, to everyone, and my friends, you and all my friends, and my frenemies. So good night, Jerry, and Meredith McLeod, and good night, Kim Philby, wherever you are.
All right. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate you being here tonight, and I'll keep you linked up over on latenightinthemidlands.com, and I'll send you the show when we get it up.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you, and have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, everybody, there he goes, Robert Morningstar. What a great show. You know, I mean, this guy, he's got a handle on things. He really does. He's got a good handle on things. And, you know, I was looking at these pictures, and I gotta be honest, when I first seen some of them, I thought, well, what is that? You know, I didn't know what I was looking at. And then once I looked into it and seen what the write-ups and so on with them, and then of course he explained it, it made more sense. I mean, I like this one picture. I mean, I didn't know I was looking at a city, but once he said it, and some people could say, well, it's the power of suggestion. Well, you know, not really. I'm going by what I'm looking at. I mean, can I say with certainty that's what it is? I could say with certainty there's some anomalies there I'd certainly like to get a closer look at. There's a tower, clearly there's a tower sticking out of the surface of the moon there, and it's big, it's tall, this tower, and it's leaning a bit, and I think it's because of the angle that you're looking at it at. But, you know, that's definitely there. There's something there. There's another one with a UFO. You know, some kind of UFO in the background there, and it's an Apollo picture. So, I mean, and these are legit pictures. So there's something there. And, again, just like I said with the crop circles earlier this week, you know, we got to take this stuff more serious and stop blowing it off because you're afraid somebody's going to laugh or pick at you. You know, I don't get hardly as much heckling as I did when I first started. They tried to break me down in the beginning when I first couple of years of this show, tried breaking me down heavily with all kinds of stuff and hate, and they'll send you emails about how you pronounce something or how you misspelled something, or it could be anything, and boy, they'll just try to, and what they're hoping is that you're weak, and that you care that much about what they think that you'll say, well, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, see, but I got tough back with these people through the years, and that's why I don't get that much of it. So the ones I get now are the heavy COINTELPRO, not just a troll, like your Nooches, your Bracker people like that, who, you know, for some reason they have been set on an agenda to try to destroy me. But I don't make up lies. I don't say anyone tried running me off the road or somebody shot bullets through my window, and you know, I don't put fake neck braces on and things like that and get on camera, and I don't cry because somebody said they're going to murder me. You know, I don't do those things. I'm Michael Vera. You know, I've got family, I've got friends, and I've got a mission, and that mission is Late Night in the Midlands, and that's what I do no matter what. I've had death threats. I laugh at you. You know, I do. I laugh at people who do it. Most of them are a bunch of hogwash anyways, and if you did, you better hope you shoot me before I shoot you. So it works both ways. So I don't worry about stuff like that. Like I say, once I'm dead, once I'm out of this meat suit, man, I'm going to be so much more powerful. And believe me, if there's ways of doing things, I'm going to do them. I will haunt that White House. Give me the chance. But what a great show tonight. I've enjoyed it. Tomorrow night, you're going to get, at this time slot, 9 o'clock time slot, you're going to have the Secret Teachings this week. The Red Pill reality show, Rascala is doing his training, so he's not going to be available, and we're considering, I got to talk to it with Rascala, but we might be making a permanent change and giving Rascala a better time slot for him, and so we might be moving a few things on the schedule here soon. Might not. I know some things are going to move. But hey, we're having a lot of fun with this, and we've got a great team again here at the L&M Radio Network. Coming up next, I think, they'll post it in the chat room, and then I'll tell you. Oh, wait, no, he's changing the schedule, so I can't tell you right now. Yeah, I can't tell you right now. I think it's... Let me see. I'm looking here. Oh, I don't know. I'm lost. Was it Waking Up the Masses? Is that what's coming up next? Oh, Enemy Within is coming up next. See, if I don't have it written down here on my desk, I forget. I have trouble keeping track of my own schedule. My schedule's heavy, folks. 5 nights a week I'm here on this mic, and a lot of work comes with it. I wish it was as easy as some of these guys got it who have everybody doing all their prep and stuff. But I wouldn't want them to do that for me. But I'm saying I wish it was that easy. Anyways, folks, I thank you all for joining us here tonight for this edition of Late Night in the Midlands on the L&M Radio Network. So for our station manager and program director, Ira Robinson, our webmaster, Jolene Robinson, and, of course, all of our chat moderators. There's a lot of you, and all of you who are listening here tonight and every night. I'm Michael Vera. This has been a broadcast of Late Night in the Midlands, and I hope you all have a great weekend, and keep your eyes posted to the sky because you never know what you might see. Keep your ears posted to this broadcast because you never know what you might learn. Good night, everybody. Be back with you on Monday night.